Hello, people. Take two. I don't know what was. I don't know what went wrong with the other video, but literally, a chunk of it was not there. So I don't know what went wrong. And that's terrible video. I mean, it was even worse than the picture I'm having now. If that's possible, which is first of all, this is a propaganda film, but it's a propaganda film. It's actually not bad. But it is a propaganda film, and why it was made was very simple. This film was made a few months after the fall of Wake Island. Wake Island fell in late December 1941. It was attacked on the 10th of December, and 16 days later it fell. It's a good movie. It is a propaganda film, as I keep saying. It was made to rally the whole. It was made to be patriotic. It was made to show the Americans are going to fight this battle to the end, this war to the end. It's a good movie up to a point. It's chronologically all over the place. I think you got to remember this film was made before they knew the whole entire story and this, that, and the other. But overall, it's a good film. I mean, Robert Preston, you know who he is. He's in the film, a young Robert Preston, who's also in Jess, by the way. And William Bendix, if you've seen one of the worst sports biopics ever made, the Dave Ruth story, you know who William Bendix is. And he was up for Best Supporting Actor in this film. He didn't win. Van Leefen. I'm going to get the guy man's right name eventually, I promise you. Van Helpen, or Johnny Deere. Mrs. Nineveh won for Best Picture. This Wake Island was up for Best Picture. It had been nominated for Best Picture. Now, whether it deserved to be nominated for Best Picture is questionable. But for the most part, it shows a good representation of the Battle of Wake Island. It shows more of the bombing, of the air attacks, and the aircrafts, and the destroyers and the cruisers attacking the island. It does a very good job of it. It just absolutely pounded this island, the Japanese did. And the defenders still just held on. They had their field guns. They had their own field guns, and they fought back. I mean, when this is shown in this film, but it can't, because this was made before the island was finally surrendered. Wake Island was not taken back. It was literally surrendered. They had several landing times. Japanese lost over 1,000 men trying to take this island. They lost two, if I remember correctly, two or three cruisers, heavy cruisers. They lost a submarine. They lost 21 something aircraft, and a 16-day siege. They could not take this island until the Americans ran out of ammunition, pretty much. But the film's fairly good. It tells a good story. It's more of a. It's not a chronological movie. It's not done very well chronologically. I don't think it was made to be chronological. I think it was just basically trying to tell a story the best it could, with moments of something happening, of scenes happening, of just dialogue happening, of characterization happening. I mean, there's the typical American soldiers, and there's the typical Japanese stereotype soldiers, or at least one. But it's not a bad movie. It's not really a bad film. It's really not. If you know what Wake Island looks like, it's sort of looks like a horseshoe, but like it's almost squeezed a little bit. So it's almost like a pincer, kind of like that. But it took them 16 days to make it. It is called The Miracle in the Pacific. It is called The Alamo in the Pacific. There's a book called that. It's a very good book. It's the other book I have on the subject. Another very good book. It's a war book of the Alamo in the Pacific. I mean, it has pictures. But I mean, what the movie doesn't tell you, because the movie gives you the impression at the end that all of the defenders, like in the Alamo, were wiped out, and they weren't. A lot of them were taken prisoner. and sent to POW camps here and there and in Tokyo. And about 100 of them or so, most of the employees of the engineering firm that was there, were held prisoner. And at the end of the war, when it was obviously going to lose, the commandant basically killed them. He basically killed the prisoners of war, and of course he was tried for war crimes. But that's not shown in the movie. You also got to remember when this film was made. This movie was literally made when they really had no idea the complete story of what the defenders of Wake Island had gone through, what they did. I mean, it does a good representation of what they did to hold the island. I think they could have done a little bit less with the levity. We have a dog on this island who somehow manages to get pregnant, and it's the only dog on the island. And what probably happened was the actual dog probably got pregnant, and they didn't know what to do with the dog anymore. So I'll just say the dog got pregnant. Puppies. Yeah, but it's the only dog on the island. And while they're all debating that little topic on the island, well, they have an air raid, and so against that, you don't see the dog again. I was worried about the dog. As you can tell, I was worried about the dog. But, as I said, it is a propaganda film. But it's one of those few propaganda films I would say is actually trying to tell a realistic, true narrative of what happened on Wake Island. You got to remember, this was made a few months after the actual fall of Wake. It was released in August of '42, so they had no idea the extent of what they did. They literally held off over 1,000 Japanese at one point. They held off cruisers, light cruisers, a submarine, constant aerial attacks, constant naval barrages, and they fought back valiantly. Of course, they're not going to tell you what happened after they fell, because it does give you the impression that they were all wiped out, like in the Alamo in Texas, and that's not what happened. So I ordered a book, the Alamo Pacific, about Lake Island. It just hasn't gotten here yet. And I wanted to do a video, and Wake Island's anniversary of falling was yesterday, if I remember correctly. Sometimes. I remember correctly. I found different dates. That's why I'm kind of up and down on the date. It was 16 days. I don't think it's showing any decent pictures, particularly of Wake Island itself. Because Wake Island is not, it may be rather difficult to defend it, but it did for a while. I mean, it shows some of the heroics of one man blowing up a light cruiser by himself. And then they show the heroics of them trying to get, some men trying to get off the island and deliver a message, and he fails. It does show Japanese shooting a man while he's in a parachute, which probably did happen. But yeah, it was up for Best Picture, as I said. It lost to I mean, it's not a movie I would think should win Best Picture, but it was nominated. This was 1942, and there were 10 movies nominated for Best Picture. So it had a 10% chance of winning. I can do that. Real fast with the other movies. The Invaders, Kings Road, The Magnificent Emerson, Sigler was one. Pied Piper, The Pride of the Yankees, Random Harvest, Talk of the Town, Wake Island, Yankee Doodle Dandy, which we all know James Cagney won for Best Actor. But yes, William Bendix for Wake Island, Best Supporting Actor. I don't think he should have been nominated. I'm sorry, he wasn't that good. I mean, he plays. The problem I have with this film, at least one of them anyway, is that it's kind of the levity I don't think really works with this film. If you ever watched the Babe Ruth story, he's in it. He's played Babe Ruth. You can tell this is a film. Babe Ruth wasn't anything like that, and I'm fairly certain Wake Island was not. Yeah, it probably was a little lax in discipline until the new commander got there, new general got there. That's probably very true, and that's portrayed very well. But one does get the idea that they were a little less prepared than they probably were on Lake Island. They probably were a little more prepared than it's given. I think they would have been a lot more prepared. It also doesn't show as many people on that island as there were. There were a lot more people on that island. I mean, the Americans lost over 100 men. They lost all their aircraft. There weren't very many. There were 20, I think there were less than 20 something. There were no ships, of course. But you got to think about this. They repelled several landing attempts. Japanese lost over 800 to 1,000 men. They sank 3 cruisers, if I remember correctly. I'm doing this by my memory. I mean, they shot down at least 20 odd planes. The Japanese. They really annoyed the Japanese. They were really, really, really frustrated with the Japanese. The stories are correct. I mean, the Japanese did land on the island, and finally they started beheading people. That's how pissed off they were. Because how dare these upstart Americans stop us from conquering a simple little atoll? They don't show that part. Probably because they didn't know about it yet. They probably didn't know about it. A lot of the atrocities committed, a lot of the war crimes that were committed, and a lot of the atrocious behavior by the Japanese would not have been known that early in the war. I mean, they would not have known. There might have been survivors. There were survivors because there were some people who were taken to POW camps in Japan and some of other camps. And just a minute. I think it's I know it's construction. Just a minute. Summary, here we go. Let's see. When they survived into the war as prisoners of war, the Japanese kept about 100 civilians on the island, forcing them to build fortifications. 3 buddies survived the 13-day siege, and this went on to score a moral victory with nearly 96% of their fellow Lake Marines withstanding all the attacks. What happened to the Lake Island prisoners? Nearly 100 contractors. Remember, a lot of these Japanese people were civilians on this island. Nearly 100 contractors who remained on the Lake Island. All the rest of the civilians they were prisoners of war camps. The Japanese killed when they basically realized they were losing the war and they would have to surrender. The commandant did kill the remaining prisoners on Lake Island. He was held for war crimes. I mean, it is an interesting story. It really should be done. It really should be done in a different movie. Would be nice. Less propaganda. Yeah, the problem is, it's a propaganda film, but I also think they were trying to tell a very good movie. You can tell that some of the actors, anyway, are trying. I mean, I'm sorry, but some of it is just a little. I don't know. It's 1940s. The film was made during the war. I'm probably expecting too much. After all, this is not Longest Day or Bridge Too Far. It was like a Battle of the Bulls film. It was almost like it's more a representation of the men who are on the island. The movie is more a representation of the events of the Battle of Lake Island. Not so much actual history of the actual men were there, because they were actual humans. They were there. It's more like a representation, like the Battle of the Bulls movie. It's representing the Americans and the Japanese in the battle and what happened when it happened. But it is a miracle they lasted for 16 days. I mean, they really put up a wall of defense around that island, keeping the Japanese at bay for 16 days. I mean, to sink a submarine, it's pretty good. But I think it's a good film. I think it's very much worth watching. Just remember what you're watching and why. Obviously the dog doesn't survive, so I disapprove of this. You're going to show a dog who wasn't there, by the way. There really was no dog on Lake Island. So what the dog is doing there on Lake Island in a film, but on the real world, on the real Lake Island, there was no dog. Which is good, because in this movie we get a very lower grade for getting the dog killed. kill the dog in the movie. I don't like John Wick. But I mean, it's a good film. If you realize that it's really representing the men and what happened on Lake Island. Don't view them as the actual people, they're just representing the actual people, or at least representing the Marines and the contractors and the Navy and so on who were there. It's a good movie. Overanalyze it, which is what I'm doing right now. Overanalyze it will drive you crazy. Because they do leave a lot out, and the chronology is a little off. Because they show the last thing you see is the Japanese invading the island, and that doesn't happen once. It happens at least twice until they overrun them. Excellent film, worth watching. Yes, it's a propaganda film, but it's a propaganda film with a purpose. And I think they do try to tell a true story while it's a propaganda film. Anyway, excellent book. You, well, my book will be Alamo in the West, Lake Island never gets here, I'll show that. It's a good movie, for the most part. What it is a good film. Anyway, thank you for watching. That wasn't too boring. Somebody's online. They disappeared. As soon as I said that, they disappeared. Anyway, like, share, comment, subscribe. Hopefully this video will come out unlike one I just had to delete. In about an hour and a half. Anyway, thank you for watching. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Behave yourselves, people, because you know I'm not going to. See you later.